Welcome, Adam. Good to
Thank
have you here.
Awesome to be here. Looking forward to the chat, mate.
Great. Let's kick it off with something about you and what you've been up to lately. We met at your marketer entrepreneur events that you're organising. What's that all about, and what was the inspiration behind it?
In terms of what it's all about, it's super simple. I've just got kind of like this belief, actually from doing podcasting, just to, I guess, tie it back into that. I did a podcast, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, did it for 5 years. And off the back of that, just built a community. And I'm just a big fan of building community. I think there's just good stuff that happens when you bring like-minded people together, get them in a room, with no agenda, just like, hey, get people together that care about the same mission and things, good stuff happens. So I couldn't find, I guess, an e-commerce entrepreneur community that I felt that was fitting to me, tried a few. So I thought, why not just build it myself? So started off with a couple of dinners, a couple of events, and just getting people together. That's kind of like the motivation, mate. Just see what comes off the back of it. I just like getting people together in the same room.
Very good. Sort of looking back at your sort of career to date, what's been the boldest thing you've done so far, and how has that sort of shaped where you are today?
It's a big question. Well, I guess I'd have to go back to just start my own business, to be honest with you. So back in 2013, my wife, Sarah, was 3 months pregnant. I had this itch to just build my own thing. It's always been in my DNA. Like my family is very entrepreneurial, sort of raised in a family where my dad was, I guess we'd call him an entrepreneur today, but back in his day, he'd probably be more considered like a Dell boy. he was like the person that would always find a way to make a few quid, but I was always exposed to that. So I wanted to just, I guess, follow that journey and follow that path. Wife was 3 months pregnant. I had this itch I just needed to scratch. And I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm going to like end up with these responsibilities with a new child and bits like that. So I turned to my wife and was like, I've got to go and start my own thing. And she was like, well, you've got 6 months. You've got 6 months to try and get some traction. And in that same 12 months, it was like having a kid. We bought our first house together, and bought our first house together, had a kid, and got married all within the space of 12 months. So boldest things I've probably done is just start my own thing. Zero regrets, but that was probably you sort of have that moment where you go, okay, this is like a fork in the road for me. And there's like what's that analogy where you kind of like, as an entrepreneur, you jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down. That was my version of like jumping off the cliff and building the plane on the way down.
Yeah, it's funny you've talked about there, like actually all the things happening at the same time. We all want this perfect situation where we just focus on the business and we haven't got all these other challenges. Mm-hmm. But actually, you just described probably a more normal life scenario, which is something needs to be done, but everything else needs to be done around that at the same time.
100%. So, yeah. And I'll be honest, I think that probably just helped. Like, I think if there's like forcing functions, and it's like having a kid and knowing that's impending probably was the best thing for me as an entrepreneur in terms of like the need to push towards like traction and like profitability early doors. And I guess having that extra motivation and everything else that was going on in life at that same time was probably like a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you.
Makes sense. You've already touched on it slightly, but you're a marketer, you're an entrepreneur, but you've also got a family and 2 kids. How do you balance all that with the ambition of wanting to do things in your career and as an entrepreneur?
You said the word balance, and I like struggle with this, man. I really do.
That's okay. That's a good answer as well.
No, I think the word balance, and I guess it's because I've chased it. So like being like a founder and entrepreneur and building my own stuff for like last 12 years now. You kind of go through these waves where it's like for the first few years, yes, I had regrets, but I kind of just needed to be all in to build the business. I had a very young kid, and I wasn't that present at that point in time. And then kind of like as you sort of like build the team and build the business, you want to start to go, okay, there's this thing called work-life balance that everyone keeps referring to. And I'm like, okay, maybe I need more of that in my life. And then I think where I've got to with the whole thinking of balance is I don't think it exists. I think it just comes down to priorities and opportunity costs. So like if you want to live in like an exceptional life or do something exceptional and you want to focus on one thing, that is always going to come at the cost of other things. And I'm not trying to like preach this one and say, okay, you need to go like all in on your business or have this perfect balance of being a family man, being an entrepreneur. But I've like personally juggled that and struggled with it for like so long. And I think the thing I've got to is it comes down to like, what does a successful and happy life look like for you? And understanding that that comes at some version of an opportunity cost, meaning I can probably build my businesses faster and go harder, but that's always going to come down as like a cost to spending time and being present with the family. So I think balance doesn't exist, man. I think it comes down to like priorities and opportunity cost. And then I guess one thing that, I'm slightly going off piece here, but one thing that I've learned about balance is like, you can't be like half in and half out. I'm either like in work mode and really focus on that, or really focus on the family. So I think when I've tried to get balance in my life, I'm like with the kids, checking the phone, not present. I'm like, I may as well either just been working or just with the kids. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to prioritize work for this chunk of time or this week or this month because I've got this thing on. And that's at the cost of spending time with the family, but I'll make up for it over here. So for me, it comes down to like priorities, opportunity cost, and presence is probably how I'd summarize it, mate.
Makes sense. And I think that's very relatable for a lot of people who are juggling these sort of things. Just interesting, obviously, you take a very entrepreneurial approach to your career versus, I guess, other people who may be more working for a company or whatever that might be. Does that allow you, largely because you're doing something, I guess, that you really enjoy and really want to be doing, does that help you to, not using the word balance, but does that help you to juggle all these different things and make it work?
Honestly, I actually think it's the other way. Right. I think I envy the person that can wake up, have a start time and have an end time. I look at that life so often and go, that's what success is. That's what happiness is, to be able to have that rigor over your life, your calendar, and be able to compartmentalize things. I think the fact that you are an entrepreneur, or you kind of do choose your own path, it's like a blessing and a curse. It's like, yes, you get to do it, but because you get to do it, you can make so many mistakes. And I've made, I mean, I told you I did podcasting. That podcast was basically 3 times a week for 4 years, me sharing every mistake I was making in my small business. I've made loads of them.
You all have, yeah.
But it's because you are the person making the decisions. So I think it actually comes down to like, yeah, I envy that person that has that set structure and set rigor, as well as that set career path, because you just don't have that as a founder.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I also sometimes envy that as well. But the thing is, the times in my career where I have had that, it doesn't work for me in the long run. I end up just, I'm much more driven by the other side of things. And even though it does take over more of my life, I still find myself in this place where I need to be doing those things. Yeah. I just can't do the 9 to 5, 9 to 6, or whatever it might be. I need to do other things and have control of that.
Well, that also comes down to, that makes you happy.
Exactly.
And I'm like, when people go, why are you working so? I'm like, 'cause I enjoy the game of business. It's like the same way that you might go and I don't know, go and watch a football game or go to the pub. Like, my version of fun is business. It's just a game. Yeah. I want to move to the next level. So I think when you compare it like that, they're quite similar.
Do you think it's a realization that in the end, nothing is quite perfect? So you have to find the thing that is, I guess, closer to perfection for you as a person?
100%. Yeah, absolutely nailed it. I think if you're chasing perfection, you're going to be super unhappy always. And I would say there are going to be times in like your career and whatever you're doing, whether you are like chasing a career inside a company, or whether you are building your own thing, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have small regrets about where you've spent your time. But you just got to get really comfortable with the fact that perfection doesn't exist, and enjoy the journey. I think that's where I'm at. And I'd probably say that's one of the key things that I've learned over the last, 12 years. I was always like the chase the next thing, chase the next thing, chase the next thing. And probably one of my big learnings has just been enjoy the journey a little bit more. Like the process of building and sitting into that a little bit, compared to hit a milestone, move on, hit a milestone, move on.
Yeah, that's also extremely interesting, because I think people forget it's not just about that end goal. It's actually about all the experiences you gather in that journey to get there, right?
100%.
Yeah, definitely. So just in terms of that period, you've obviously been doing this for 15 plus years now, I guess. What's been the most sort of surprising challenge you faced, and how have you kind of adapted to that on a mental and physical perspective?
Is this professional, personal, or both?
It could be whatever you feel.
I don't know where you want to take this. I know the first thing that comes to mind, but it's it's going slightly off piste here, but yeah, we'll go there, shall we? So
go for it. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Don't do anything you don't feel comfortable.
No, all good. The biggest challenge I actually faced was when I lost my dad 5 years ago.
Okay.
Because I think professionally I was on like this path, and I felt like I knew myself. And because the reason this triggered it is because you went like physically as well as mentally. I thought I was in like a really strong, robust place as a now I realize I was a boy, and I think that change of like losing your dad is like a forcing function of becoming a man. Yeah. So like the biggest challenge that I sort of had was like when I lost my dad, and it was, I guess, largely around losing my dad, but also it was like this challenge of like identity, like what I was chasing. So I realized that I was sort of chasing, I think like most young boys or men, the sort of like the approval of their dad because he was an entrepreneur. I wanted to make him proud. So I kind of went through this like whole 12, 18 months of self-reflection, ended up getting a therapist through that journey, trying to become like more self-aware of myself. And that for me was probably the biggest inflection point of my life, when I was like, I guess, projecting who I thought I needed to be compared to like owning who I actually am. So like that 18-month journey was challenging, but I think truly shaped like who I am today, and gave me just this foundation of like personal, I guess, authenticity and confidence for like the rest of my life. So that was like, I don't know where you want to go with that, but that was the thing that came up.
Look, what you're saying, around resilience, there's a lot of resilience there you've gained through that difficult time. And I think that's the thing that we often forget, which is actually sometimes the challenging or the most challenging times can actually help you to grow the most. It's, when things are kind of rolling and going quite well, you don't always learn as much. And you've obviously found a way to sort of deal with what is an extremely difficult situation, and, come out of that the other side, really, that you're robust, you're resilient, and able to deal with that. When you look at that and think, this is life, these things can happen at any particular point. And you need to realize that, don't let it get you down, I guess, and actually try and say, how can I push against this, and how can I keep going? Because there's always going to be challenges in life, and it's how you deal with them and how you remain resilient that's perhaps the key thing. Does that seem fair?
100%. And probably just to build on that is, up until that point, I tried to do everything alone. I was like, I can do this. And there was like an ego and a pride thing coming in. And as I sort of shared, is like when all that happened, I tried to bottle it up and like manage it all on my own and myself, and sort of like drive through it. That's, I think, one of my biggest learnings through that is like, it's actually one of my favorite quotes at the moment, and you may have bumped into it because it's on some of the things about the community and how I approach community. Is like, you can go fast alone and far together. Yeah. I'm obsessed with that quote right now.
I remember you saying that, actually.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. And that really, I guess, over the last few years was probably triggered by the fact that I actually needed support from, I had an executive coach and a mentor at that point. I went to therapy, did 12, 18 months of that. And then just the friendship circle around me. The day that I sort of like took this mask off of like, everything's okay, I'm fine, and and took that off. And I just learned that actually, like, the people that you surround yourself with are just as important to your journey and like who you're going to end up becoming. Yeah. Alongside like the thing that you're doing. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways as well. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And I think it actually relates to another interview that I did with someone else who's a coach and works with people from the age of 15 to sort of 60 in coaching sort of physical and mental performance. And we had the same conversation, which is sometimes for men, we think we have to do everything on our own, and we feel like society is going to look at us in a funny way if we ask for help or we talk to other people about things and try and get that help. It feels like it's acceptable for women, or it's more acceptable for women, but men find it much harder to do that. And it sounds like that's what you had as well. You were going through a difficult challenge with that.
Yeah, completely. And I think the thing that I've learned is like vulnerability and authenticity is a superpower. Yeah. And the amount of times where, even down to the smallest thing of like being in a meeting and someone says something, I'm the guy that stops the meeting and goes, I don't understand what that word means. And I'm like, can you explain that to me? And what I've learned by just that very simple, I guess, approach is the person on the other side of the table, they know in their mind that everything else that they say, I understand because I'm going to stop and I'm not scared to look silly. And that builds rapport and relationships so quickly. Like the idea of asking friends for help, I was like, I'm never going to ask anyone for help. Like, I don't need it. I'll work it out myself. It's actually a gift, man. Like, your friends appreciate the fact that you reach out to them. And they, like, if you think about the times that someone's reached out to you and says, hey, Neil, can you help me with this? The fact they thought of you, reached out, that helps you feel good. You want to help. It strengthens the relationship. I would just push more people. And you're so right in terms of, like, from a male perspective, this ego, pride, and this is coming from experience, man. Like, I was that guy through and through. Yeah. There is such a weight that comes off your shoulders when you realize you don't have to do everything yourself.
Yeah. I can relate to that to some degree as well. It's like when I was younger, especially when I first started my career, I always felt like, oh, I can't ask this silly question, you know. But actually, the reality is you're learning. You want to ask questions of these people who have more experience of you, and you shouldn't feel like it's a bad thing to ask those questions or ask for help because we all need it at some point in life. 100%. Right? So yeah, it makes absolute sense. So you've got this family, a couple of kids, probably takes up a lot of time, and you've got this project with your events and all this kind of thing. How do you find this energy day to day to sort of deal with that? And is it getting harder as you're getting older to find that energy?
Yeah, good question. I'm like super top of mind for me at the moment. This is, by the way, in terms of like, because I've got, I guess, own and operate a few businesses. I guess one thing I didn't share, I don't even think you know, that I also do coaching. So if I wanted to become like a better leader and then got a coaching diploma. So I enjoy that. And then I've got these other things going on. So my professional world is like, there's a bunch of stuff. And then, as you said, family, kids, bits like that. In terms of like getting the energy, I think it comes down to picking priorities is one thing I've learned, and the importance of picking your battles super carefully, because we all have like a limited amount of energy in the day that we can spend. Because I used to be a yes man as well, like very much just say yes. Yeah. And that used to, I guess I would let other people's priorities slip into mine. And that's like really challenging to learn how to say no in a I guess, respectful way, but in a way that like protects your energy, to use your word. So I guess professionally, for me, it's about priorities and just working out, all right, where am I going? What do I want to do? And then just making sure that I do this thing on a Sunday night. I always look back at my calendar the last week. Like, have I spent time working on the things that are conducive to like me hitting my personal goals? And then I look at the week and 2, 3, 4 weeks out and say, what have I accepted or booked in that I probably shouldn't have, and try and like learn and iterate from there. So that's like professionally and like tactically what I do. On like a personal level, the thing I was always the worst in the world at was sleep. I was like, so when I way back when, so I had a very short stint. So I decided I want to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going way back here, but decided I want to be an entrepreneur, realized I had no money. So I was like, how do I get some money to start my own business? Yeah,
familiar problem. Yeah.
Familiar problem, but what was I at this point? I was like 19 or 20 or something like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to join the forces. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go and what's the highest paying job in the forces? So I applied for military intelligence, went down to Pirbright, did that. And in that phase of waiting to join, I actually got a telesales job. And I walked into the telesales job and there was a woman there. I was like, I know you. Anyway, that's where me and my wife reconnected, because we were like childhood sweethearts back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Amazing. So that's where we kind of reconnected. And I guess the reason that I brought that up in my head is like, for like 6-7 months, she would like criticize me because there was this cheap drink you used to be able to get from Tesco called KX, which was like a Red Bull knockoff.
Right.
And I realized that's where like my habit of like caffeine really kicked in. So I would be drinking 7 to 8 cans of KX a day because it was 3 for £1.
Wow. Yeah.
And that habit stayed with me for probably 7 or 8 years of just level of I upgraded to coffee because of an old mentor and colleague of mine called Michael Zachariah. First day out on the road, actually, he was like, so I always wanted to be an area sales manager. He took me out on the road and took me to a coffee shop. He was like, espresso? I'm like, I don't drink coffee. He's like, you're not getting back in the car until you drink your first espresso. I'm like, okay. So he just trained me that way. But I've had this horrible relationship with like caffeine for so long. And coming back to the question you asked, and sorry for the long-winded answer, but sleep for me, I've realized sleep is like a superpower, man.
It is, yeah.
Protecting and prioritizing your sleep, it's so obvious. Like when I'm effective is because I have prioritized my health. Yeah. And I used to think like prioritizing my health and my sleep was selfish. I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. I've got all this stuff on. I've got to spend time with the kids. I can't go and spend an hour in the gym every day. I'll just contract my time, the me time, and then just look at other people's priorities, look at work and look at family. And I've realized that if I look after myself, sleep perspective, and then just get some fitness in, I am just a different human. So I think in terms of like how I get the energy, it's like when you're on like an airplane, it's like put your own air mask on first.
Yeah.
That's probably the thing that I've learned, which is like get yourself in a good shape, get your sleep right, like get your fitness right, and then everything else you have the energy for, and then then it becomes a prioritization game. Like if you don't get that right, you're just setting yourself up for failure, in my experience anyway.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it's this balance as well. Sometimes you use the caffeine to kind of get you into a situation where you feel alert, but then that can affect your sleep. And it's like a vicious cycle, right? So you've got to figure out that balance for you personally. And I don't know, for me, when I was younger, I could probably have a couple of coffees and be okay and still sleep. I was probably doing a lot more, I suppose, active outdoor stuff then. But now, I have to watch those things. Maybe I'll only have one or two in the morning, and then that's it, just to make sure that I get that sleep. Because you're absolutely right. To be alert, to be sharp, to perform better, especially as you're getting older, you need that sleep more than anything. And I think, the good analogy there, you put the mask on first on the person that needs it. The more vulnerable person can wait. You put it on first because you need to be in control. You need to have the ability to actually deal with the things around you. 100%. So that's super important, right?
You need to be able to operate. I got to the point where I was like, I'm not proud of this, but I was like balancing like caffeine and melatonin. Like that's how I lived. Yeah. I was like, lots of coffee, Red Bulls and C4s and all those drinks. Again, not sponsored by any of these energy. No, despite saying brand names, just bleep them all out. And then like melatonin to try and get me sleep. And it's a car crash of a lifestyle, man. It's not sustainable. Yeah. And you think it's sustainable, which is so dangerous. And you think you're being effective because you're able to work longer. And like, there's this whole thing, which is like, just because you're up doing work does not mean you're effective.
Absolutely.
So like, for me, like contracting the amount of time that I do work and making sure I look after myself a little bit more means I personally feel like I'm getting 50% more, I guess I'm 50% more effective than I used to be. So I can take a few hours extra, to your point, spend time with the family a little bit more because I'm just able to be more effective in that time now.
It sounds like that evolved over a period of time. So is that a case that when you were younger, you kind of got away with it a little bit more and it was okay? And then as you've gotten a bit older, you sort of found that it's more challenging to do it?
I think from like a sleep and like balancing lifestyle perspective, it's probably less around the age and just more around the mentality. Is like, I think too many founders and entrepreneurs, or just even if you're in a day job and you're really trying to grind it out and progress, we just believe that like working more is the answer. And it's like, no. And there's this level of like guilt that kicks in. It's like, I'm not working, I should be working. Like, I'd be lying in bed thinking about the business. I'm like, I might as well just get up and just work because I'm thinking about it anyway and it's top of mind. I think just as I've grown up a little bit, I'm like, oh, actually there's other things in life that I need to start prioritizing. Yeah. There's this, I guess you eventually understand that like just being at your desk doesn't mean you're effective. And I guess all these things coming together, as well as just, I guess as I shared this whole, rather than this image of me as an entrepreneur and founder, because like being an entrepreneur and founder was like sexy, like it is now, but it's like, it kind of got sexy like 10, 12, 15 years ago. And I was like learning about entrepreneurship. And then you kind of get into this hustle culture and you go, okay, that's what success looks like. And I think that's like a crock of shit. I'm not sure if you can swear on this podcast, but
go for it.
Yeah, I just think like the whole perception of like what you need to do to be successful and what that's painting, I just don't think that's healthy. I think, come back to your word balance. And again, I'm not the one to say like you need to create like a balanced lifestyle for family and everything like this, you need to work out what your version of success is and then drive towards that. But it has to all be underpinned with your health, man, because I've got 2 young boys. I've got a 9, 11-year-old. They are getting to the point now where they are running around a park, playing football with me, playing rugby with me. And I'm like, they take a lot of energy out of me, dude. So it's like right now, if my health isn't in a good place, I'm just useless.
Yeah, it's really, really good advice. And I literally had a very similar conversation this the other day about the self-care piece. It's so important to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people. We often think of it as, it's being selfish, but it's actually not being selfish. If you are in a good way, both mentally and physically, it gives you more ability to take care of those around you. Does that feel like where you've sort of landed?
Yeah, completely. And you use the word like mental as well there. And I think like your physical health, there's like external signals where it's like, hey, you're not healthy, you need to sort it out. I think the mental health thing is a whole different game. And like to like break down the barriers around, specifically in men, as you sort of addressed. Yeah. For me, personally passionate about working out like how to like unpack that with people. Because I think that the whole mental game that you go through, and again, coming back to my dad, like that's what I was navigating. And to start to understand that like you have mental health and it's an okay thing to say and talk about. I would love to find a way to start getting that message out there a little bit more and just pushing people to talk about that a little bit more without the need to feel like, actually, I need to hold all this burden on my own. Because like your mental health, your physical health, if they're not in good shape, it's kind of like then, like how are you operating? Because you're not, it sounds weird saying it out loud, I've never like thought of it like this, but like poor articulation, but you're not you. If you are not balanced and happy and being authentic, you are basically just living a perception or what other people want you to be. And I think that's so dangerous, man.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And again, let's dig a bit deeper on that sort of self-care piece. What are the sort of things that you do now to take care of yourself that you may not have done 10, 15 years ago? Or how has that evolved over time? Because we've literally hit the nail on the head, which is it's critically important to take care of yourself. But what are the things you can actually actively do to make that work better? If that makes sense.
You've caught me at like a really interesting time in my life asking that question. And I don't want to like talk about it as if I've got it nailed on because I'm still learning.
I don't think any of us do. Probably go for the whole of our lives, we'll never know for sure. But
I guess like from like a fitness perspective, I've always been into fitness, but I've always needed like a goal or a challenge, like something to work towards, like a moment in time. So that might be like a marathon, like I did some ultra white collar boxing and bits like that. And it's like, okay, I need this thing. I'll train for that thing. And when that thing's over, I'm done. And I'll just like fall off the wagon. I'm like, cool. I've trained for 12 weeks, whatever it is, and I'm done again. And I think use the word evolve there. I think my learning over time has been actually, have you seen that thing that's like 1% a day better and how it compounds?
Yeah.
The thing that I've learned is like compounding of health is real and consistency matters. So I'm like, okay, now I'm like in a position where I'm thinking, I don't need this massive milestone in the future. I'm just going to do it for me because I know the benefits. And then it's like, well, how do I tactically show up and look after me, that self-care piece? Yeah. So things I do at the moment, like before I do any work, I work out. I just have to. I got into running. I hate running. I just hate it, but I love the feeling after. And people say like this run is high, and it is legit. I call it my medicine. I'm like, I don't enjoy the run, but I know how good it is for like my mental health, my fitness, probably more the mental side, to be honest, than the fitness. So I'm trying to get into a routine of running and just getting into, I kind of said prioritization earlier, and it's like, if you kind of like don't put the stuff in the calendar, I'm going super tactical here, so apologies if it's not where you want it to go, but
absolutely fine.
We all have like meetings in the calendar, and it's like we stick to those. We're here today, that was in the calendar. Like, fine, it's happening. I've committed, you've committed, we're here. What tends to happen with anything that is for you, you don't put it in the calendar, and then it's always negotiable. It's like, Neil wanted to meet on Saturday morning doing this. Okay, I'll do that. I won't go and do this thing that I've committed to do for myself. That's how I used to operate. Now I'm like, I've made an agreement with myself on Sunday night that these things matter. And if someone says, do you want to grab coffee Tuesday for breakfast? And I look at my calendar, I'm like, can't do that. What else can you do? And that might be because I've just got a gym session and it's just me. And most people might go, well, you could move it. But then that becomes I'm prioritizing that coffee compared to what I know matters to me right now, which is prioritizing my self-care and health. So I think like blocking that off is one tactic. And then on the other side of it, journaling. And I'm on and off with journaling. I need to get into a better routine and habit. But when I do it, I know it makes a massive difference. Just the ability to sit down at the end of the day and just decompress 4, 6, 10 minutes and just get the thoughts out my head. Those two things are like the combination of what I would like to get into a more stricter routine and habit. The journaling one is the one that I keep bobbing in and out of, but I know it's good for me, so I just need to fix it. But I'd say the time blocking and putting time in for yourself and protecting it, super important.
Yeah. Again, you've touched on some other things that I've had recent discussions with people in the sort of 30 to 40-year-old men bracket. Similar kind of challenges, right? People say initially, perhaps they needed something to, trigger them to do fitness basically, or to keep healthy, like they, book a Tough Mudder or whatever that might be. And then at the end, they'd stop for a while, and it just becomes this like boom bust cycle. But as soon as you start realizing that actually you got to train for life, just train generally for life, and that means it doesn't mean being full on all the time. It just means being consistent, and you use the word there a number of times. And keeping that consistency kind of puts a grounding around everything you do. So it gives you then actually flexibility to be more healthy, do more, have more energy, and perform better more broadly in life. So looking after yourself, keeping that consistency seems like the critical thing. And I think what you've just said there is probably very relatable to a lot of people. And I guess there are people out there that maybe haven't got to that point yet. They're struggling, to get that consistency. But because they think they have to go all out. We're kind of told all the time, you've got to train as hard as you can. But actually, training as hard as you can might not always be the best thing to do. Maybe sometimes you just go there and do a little bit. But at least it's consistent. At least you keep doing it on a regular basis. Do you think that's a fair way of looking at it now that you've it's happened for you over the last few years and you've sort of changed your approach?
Yeah, I think it's a great summary of it. And it kind of comes down to me there's this quote, I'm trying to remember. Got it. It was this, self-respect comes from self-discipline. And I read that and I was like, that landed with me so hard. I'm like, hold on, when I'm telling myself that these things matter to me, my health, my fitness, and people have like different motivations for that. I completely get it. But I think like tying that motivation to like a short-term goal, from my experience, is quite fleeting. And then as soon as, if anyone's listening to this thinking, that sounds like me, I would just push them to your point to go, just take the intensity down a little bit and find a level that can just mean you show up, whether that's 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 7 days a week, whatever it is for you that can be consistent. Yeah. And then put it in the calendar and have the discipline to show up. And I promise you what happens is, it's not just the fitness, but when you start to make promises to yourself and keep them, everything else in life becomes easier, more enjoyable, and you start to show up as you. So like self-respect comes from self-discipline. I just think find out what matters, take the intensity down a little bit so you can show up for you without the guilt, and then just see what happens. Make a commitment for 90 days, 180 days, whatever it is, that is sustainable. And if you do that, people just won't go back. Because when you go back, it's like, I don't feel like me. I'm muddy thinking and put on ways. And like, as soon as you get into that routine and you set this baseline of, actually, I can continue to do this. The day that I don't work out now, I'm a different guy. I feel different. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but you have to experience what you is when you are on your best form. Yeah. I would just challenge anyone to do that and just have the discipline to stick to the promises that you make to yourself.
Discipline mindset, it's really good advice actually for anyone who's struggling with it. I think absolutely. And it's funny you're saying about scheduling time in your diary. I'm pretty sure it's in Phil Knight, the founder of Nike's book.
I haven't read that yet. Everyone, Shoe Dog.
It's such a good book.
Everyone keeps telling me to read Shoe
really
Dog.
good.
Okay, it's on the list.
But he says, I'm pretty sure in that book, he talks about scheduling time for his run, because his thing was running, of course, which makes sense, I guess, when founding Nike. And he makes a really key point about that. So it's absolutely critical. Don't just put yourself to the side. Think, how do I prioritize time for me? Because that all helps everything else around you, and you'll just do better in life generally, I think.
Well, everyone gets the best out of you if you are looking after you.
Exactly.
Like, if I want to show up on my A game, like, and you want me to show up on my A game, so we're spending time together, whether we're working together professionally, or we're going to play paddle together, whatever it is, it's like, you want me to show up. And if you don't want Adam Callow on his like C rating day to show up, no one wants that. I don't want friends to show up like that. I don't want my family to show up like that. So if you just look after yourself and you can show up your A game, and yes, that might mean you have to take a little bit of time for you, everybody benefits, man.
Yeah. Making me feel vulnerable now, because this is like my third podcast attempt, and you've been doing this for years. Good stuff. So let's talk a bit about success. How's your sort of definition of success changed from when you were, say, 20 to now?
That is a massive question, dude.
Okay, just part of it. You don't have to
let's get into it. It's cool. I like it. 20-year-old me was chasing what probably every stereotypical 20-year-old founder is chasing, which is status, ego, and money. And I'm like, cool. What do I need to do to earn more money so I feel like I'm successful, the ego kicking in because I've got more status professionally? And I kind of got on that treadmill and just ran as hard as I could for a long period, even with young kids. Just cool. Kids are young. They don't do much for the first few years. So I'm like, okay, I'll just keep working, get on that treadmill. In terms of, I guess, how that's evolved over time, I guess firstly having a kid, so cliche, but you go, okay, I'm no longer doing this for my ego. I'm doing this for someone else. And that has like a different energy about it. 100%.
It absolutely does. Yeah,
it really does.
I completely agree.
And that was probably like the first nudge for me to go, actually, when you're doing it for something slightly bigger than ego and status, it kind of feels a bit better. Which was like, I guess, one thing. In terms of like how that's progressed since having kids, to be honest, it probably comes back to what I shared earlier, which is hitting like milestones. I've realized are so like, because you set yourself a goal, you drive towards it a year, 2-3 years, and you'd hit it, and you go, I've hit it, and that feeling of success is so short if that's the way that you're operating. It's like hit a milestone, move on. The thing that I probably rate success on rather than on these like big 1, 2, 3 year horizons of what I'm chasing, I probably just rate it on a daily basis, which is like,
in terms of how you feel?
How I feel. Yeah. Which is, and don't get me wrong, I understand there's like a need for people to go, okay, there's like brilliant basics we need in place. There's like stuff that I need to be able to live and just not have like day-to-day personal stress. So you just need to get all those boxes covered, and I get that. But when you're at that level and you go, okay, and then you start chasing things, ego, money, status, and bits like that, that for me was so unfulfilling, but it probably took 3 to 4 years of reflection, doing the work, trying to find out actually like, what am I chasing here? And I've realized the thing that I'm chasing is just when it sounds so cliche, man. Like, it sounds a little bit wanky, and I'm aware of it.
Just
but
say
like,
it. Just say
it's like when I lie in bed at night, am I proud of what I've done? And do I feel fulfilled and authentic? Do I feel like I've shown up as me?
Yeah.
Done my best work? The things that I've said are priorities, have I delivered them? And if I do that and I look at myself in the mirror, I'm happy. And for me, success now is like just feeling fulfilled. I'm no longer like trying to chase a goal. I'm like, let's enjoy the journey. Yeah. Like if you don't enjoy the journey, you are just setting yourself up for a day's worth of celebration every 6 to 24 months. And then you're just back on a treadmill. And that's, for me, just no way to live anymore.
I think that's really good. It's really, really good. And you mentioned the cliche, but actually it's a truth. It's a reality. And I think we focus probably in life too much on ego, and ego relates to what everybody else thinks versus what you think and feel. Mm-hmm. And I think what you've just described there is a journey and a learning from being kind of dragged into that classic thing, which is I need to impress everybody else. I need to show everybody else what I'm doing and what I can do, to actually thinking, well, all that matters is, am I doing the things that are right for me? And that is probably where the real power is, because if you stop thinking externally and start internally, you've probably got more chance of finding the kind of success that you're looking for. Does that sound familiar, fair?
It sounds super fair. And it's like one of those things that is like easy to say, so hard to live, because we all know it makes sense. We all know, everyone, me, you, everyone listening knows that today, yesterday, next week, they are doing things that they don't want to be doing because they are either trying to impress someone else or there's some ego associated to it. The courage it takes to actually be your authentic self, that's coming back to like being a dad, man. Like, that's the thing. If I could give my kids anything, like anything in life, the one thing I would like to bottle up is self-awareness of like who you are, your authentic self, and the courage to live that life. And I don't care what that means for my kids. If they can like show up as them, for me, that is what success is. Coming back to the last question, like if you are true to yourself, and I know it's never binary. It's never like you're either true to yourself or not. You will always fluctuate. Things happen, opportunities come up, and something looks shiny and bits like that. But if you can be authentic, just to revert back to the last question, that's what success is for me. Yeah.
Again, really, really good advice, and I think really relatable. Everyone goes through these periods where they're unsure about what they should do and how they should approach life or success. Find out what success means to you, I think, is probably the critical thing, right?
Yeah. I listened to a podcast. I can't remember who it was with. Oh, it was Chris Williamson and Jocko on the Modern Wisdom podcast. Love that pod. Yeah. And he said something the other day, and it actually relates to something you said earlier, which is kind of the like hard times and build resilience. There was something which said, what you're probably seeking in life is on the other side of a conversation you're not having. And I think there are so many people, me included, that there's conversations I want to have with people that I know, friends, associates, colleagues, family, whatever it is, and I'm not having them because they're uncomfortable. I think a challenge for the audience, find that one conversation you're not having. Yeah. And it's interesting because I had one of these conversations, God's honest truth, on Monday this week. It's something I've been putting off for 2 weeks. Didn't want to have it. Cool. Yeah. Get on with it, Adam. Put your big boy pants on.
Just get on with it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we paint these pictures in our head of like how bad things are going to be all the time and what the judgment's going to be and bits like this. From my experience, and I'm trying to build this muscle up, is every time you have one of those conversations, the weight, the feeling of authenticity is like, it wasn't that bad. I'm still alive. It's all fine. So I would push everybody as like a pod challenge to work out what's the one conversation you're not having and go and have it and just see how you feel and try and get into the rhythm of doing that. I wish I did more of it. I don't want to come across preachy because I haven't got this nailed on, but I think having tough conversations is one of the first stepping stones to learning to be authentic.
Yeah. And I think you've just hit the nail on the head as well in terms of some of these challenges where people want to do the thing they want to do. It's much easier to continue to do the thing you're doing. The hard step is to step out of your comfort zone and try and do something different to progress forward, which is the absolute thing you need to do. But it's extremely difficult to do it for most people. And I don't think, the more you do it, it doesn't necessarily get easier. There's always another level. There's always something else to push forward.
Right? Yeah. The stakes get higher. Yeah. I think the thing that I come back to with that is, what's the downside? And if you're really honest, what's the downside? Okay, you want to start a YouTube channel, and you go, I don't want to put up a video in case people critique it. I'm like, okay, like the people that take the time and energy to criticize something that you're passionate about, that's a problem for them. That's not a problem for you. Like, and again, coming back to like the kids, that's what I'm trying to share with them is. Yeah. There are so many things that you probably want to do in your life, and out of fear of like judgment, you don't do. Yeah. And if you really just break down black and white, write it down, like what's the worst that can happen here? It's not that bad. We just paint these big narratives in our head of why you shouldn't do stuff compared to why you should. And I'd push more people to work out just why you should.
Yeah, the human mind is one of the biggest barriers to progression sometimes.
Yeah.
You said it there exactly, which is most of the time when you do these things, they're never, ever anywhere near as bad. And it doesn't matter whether that was when you were young, talking to a girl and maybe she might say no, or, going and having that difficult conversation, going for that interview with that big company, whatever that thing might be. We all have those all the time, but they're never as bad as we think they're going to be. It's just our minds create this thing. They create this story that it's going to be this horrible thing and there's going to be an ogre and God knows what. So,
100%. Like we're the center of our own universe. So everything revolves around us in our own head.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is like you're the center of your own universe. So the stuff that I put out online, it matters the world to me. No one cares. They've got their own stuff to deal with. Just do you.
And some people will relate to it and some people won't because, we're all different, right? So, yeah, absolutely makes sense. And again, super good advice for anyone who's struggling with this stuff out there. So you're still young, really, compared to me anyway. I guess what I'd be really interested to know is, as you sort of gone through this process of sort of learning and growing, as life is getting faster all the time, have you noticed that as you get older, it 100%. Seems to get faster? And I guess it just gets faster and faster. It's probably a mathematical thing because obviously a year is a shorter part of your life. When did you kind of realize that? And did it then trigger you to change the way you approach things?
To be honest, I don't think it was about like the speed of life that made me go, I need to change some stuff here. It was all the stuff like we previously discussed, which is feeling unfulfilled and wanting to change how I showed up for myself. Probably losing my dad was actually a driver towards this, actually, which is like thinking about life a little bit more. I think naturally, like you lose someone that close to you and you go, shit, we don't live forever.
Yeah.
Like my dad was like Superman to me. I'm like, whoa, hold on, what's going on here? So I think that probably gave me like a little bit of a reset, more than like time from like 20s to where I am now, 35. There's probably like moments that have stuck with me and changed my behavior. And we all have them. I remember speaking to my old coach actually about like moments. He said, most people consider moments. Imagine you're driving down the motorway. So you're doing 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. Cool. You end up doing 80, 85, 90. And I'm not advocating anyone's speeds, but you find yourself speeding. And all of a sudden you see some blue flashes on behind you and you go, oh, I've got a ticket. And then you slow down and then the police car goes around you. They're not after you. And you go, okay, I'm going to learn from that. I don't need to be speeding. And then 5 miles down the road, you're speeding again. Like we just slip into like this behavior. My coach was like, find the moments that impact you and sit in the mud and work out what's the change you want to see in yourself off the back of it. So for me, less about time frame in terms of what's changed my mindset. I think we all bump into these experiences and moments that are there to challenge us 100%, drag us to like the bottom of the world in terms of energy and challenge and like take some really dark places. But the desire to like make that shape of like bouncing back like a V and coming back strong, but then not letting that become fleeting and like working out what did I learn from this? That's probably the biggest thing of like how I've changed how I operate, which is before challenge comes through, kick the door down, move on. Now what I try and do is go, okay, what has it actually taught me? What's it taught me about business? What has it taught about me? What's it taught me about family? So it's less about time frame and just more around sitting in the mud when you experience challenges or moments that come by and then working out, okay, what am I going to take away from this? And then trying to let that craft like mold you a little bit. That's probably the best way I can answer it, mate.
So do you have like a different perspective, I guess, from before and after, if that makes sense? Like different priorities, different ways of thinking?
100%. Yeah. It's interesting you asked it that. The thing that came up my side. So about 8 months before I lose my dad, so I used to go and see him up at a park. So he used to live in a place called Swaddling Coat. There was this park where he used to go and walk his dogs. And I used to get my boys, go to the park, fling the balls, dogs would run, boys would play, and I'd be talking to him about business because we bonded over business. Like he was an entrepreneur, Del Boy. And
were you Rodney?
No, sadly not. Sadly not. But I always used to like find enjoyment out of sharing with him how business is going. And I remember this one day as an electrical wholesaler in the UK that we just landed a massive contract with. I was like, go and tell Dad. Went to the park, and I was really excited, and I was sharing with him, like, we've got this contract, we just hired a new employee. And I felt like I was talking to a brick wall, and he was gazing across the park, and he just turned and went, I'm really proud of you. And I'm like, thanks. And I paused. I remember this as if it was yesterday. And I realized he hadn't heard a word of what I'd said. I was like, why? And he just casually, look at them boys. You've done well. And mate, that for me changed my life. I was like chasing pride from my dad, thinking it was about business, and seeing that, because I thought that all he cared about as an entrepreneur and watching him operate and the hours that he put in, he was like the business guy. He was like an entrepreneur through and through. And I thought that's what he valued. Yeah. I was like, oh, he did all that for me and my brother and my mum. And that's the thing that he actually valued. And that's the penny drop moment for me. I was like, I've been playing the wrong game, or I've misunderstood the game that I thought I was playing. So that's like the moment for me, man, where I was like, everything changed. I was like, I am really proud of me as a dad and bits like that, but I probably just didn't put enough weight to it. And my dad taught me so much in that 30 seconds.
Did that also resonate more once you had kids as well? Like, because you then realize actually you were just proud of them. They don't have to do anything. You know, that you want them to do well. You want them to try hard. You want them to do the thing that makes them happy, and that in a way makes you proud on its own, right? And then anything else beyond that is just amazing.
Yeah, see my kids, like there's like, because they're at that age now. There's a recent fun story. There's a YouTuber called Ryan Trahan. And he's got this challenge where he takes a penny across the United States, and he starts with a penny and he has to buy and sell stuff. And like my son watched that like 20-part YouTube series. Both my boys did. And then like 3 weeks ago, they came to me and were like, Dad, we've got some pocket money, but we want to make more money. Can we use our pocket money this week? So they got 30 dirhams between them. So they want to use their pocket money, so they got £5 between them. They're like, can we take that £5, buy some sweets, and then sell? And I'm like, that's cool. Yes. Yeah. My wife's like, what are you accepting? What are they doing? Where they sell? I'm like, just they'll work it out. Anyway, they bought some sweets, went to the park, sold them. They came back with just over £20. And I'm like, oh my word, amazing. That's epic. Yeah. It's not the fact they're doing like entrepreneurial stuff. The thing that I'm proud, just as like a dad perspective, to come back to that, is my kids are thinking for themselves. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. Like they are being bold enough and brave enough to think for themselves. And I am positively pushing them that way as much as possible, to the point that my wife argues with me about this. Argues is a harsh term.
Discusses aggressively.
Discusses I like that. Discusses aggressively, firmly. Because if my kids, if they're in a class and the teacher either says something they don't understand or that they disagree with, and this is probably not great parenting advice, but I don't want my kids to be in a world where they just accept everything that they hear. Yeah. And that's challenging for kids that are in school. But to hear that, like my kids, we had a parents' evening 6 weeks ago, and it's like, he challenges me and asks me great questions all the time. There's moments like that where I'm like super proud. They're the moments of pride. I can't remember where we start with this question, but like I was thinking they're the moments for me that pop up as like a proud dad. And again, super fulfilling. That's the stuff that I care about, man.
Oh, really, really, again, great advice and great thoughts. And I think a lot of people feel the same, you know, it's, and if I think about it in terms of my daughter, for example, you know, I want her to do her best. You know, I just want her to feel like she's being fulfilled and she's doing what she feels she enjoys and what she feels she can do to her best. But it's the trying and the effort that is more interesting to me in the end than the outcome, because you can learn and get better at things over time, and they've got plenty of time, and they can eventually get the outcome later in life. But right now, that's more about doing something different or feeling confident about that. And I had a conversation with someone who had been a very you know, sort of high performance athlete when they were younger. And as a kid, they made the comment that actually the teachers used to he was quite bold, and he was very good at his sport, and the teachers sometimes would chill out, don't get too cocky. And in some ways they were he said they sometimes felt like they were crushing his light in a way. And it's like, maybe that's not the best thing. It's actually, you want to build people up, teach them about humility, of course, but build people up, give them the confidence, because confidence is actually the critical thing that allows you to keep moving forward, right?
Yeah, 100%. The idea of like a small amount of like anger came with me. Like the idea of like a kid being in a class and excelling at something, and then the teacher regressing them to like the average because it's easier to teach and manage a classroom. That's annoying. To come back to what you talked about with your daughter, I think you're so right. It comes down to attitude for me, which is like, if you show up and do your best and you got the right attitude, everything else is learnable. You can work the rest out.
Except maths. I was never good at maths.
I love maths, man. I'm a maths guy.
Oh, you're like, I was the other way around. I was like English and things like that. But
no,
I can do maths. The funny thing is, in my career, I ended up doing quite a bit of maths and Excel spreadsheets and all sorts, because when you're raising capital for, startups and things like that, there's a lot of maths involved 100%. In that. But if only I'd known that when I was young. But that's life, isn't it? Good stuff. We talked a lot about mindset, the physical challenges, all the balance, not balance, but how you manage life generally. Just interested to know, what are the sort of non-negotiable sort of routines or habits that you stick to now? I know you have touched on some of them, but what are the kind of specific ones that you think other people might find beneficial?
At risk of sounding like a broken record, I think scheduling time for you has to happen. That's like non-negotiable. What you put into that time, make sure it's something that you can be consistent with. There's loads of like everybody, there's loads of things that I'm trying, and I'm like, I know I've got the Whoop back on my wrist now, so I'm like, okay, I'm really interested in like certain things around like, I know, like, what does the gym do to my sleep, or ice baths and all this, like we all like, it's all on YouTube. We've all seen that. And I'm like, okay, there's like peaks of curiosity to me. And I think like sampling things is interesting. But I'm like really nervous to bring things into that like non-negotiable pool until I know I can commit to it. So there's like, I spend most of my time testing and playing, and I like the data, I like math. So I'm the guy that's like, okay, what's that supplement stat like? Let me do that and then commit to it for a period and go, has that made a positive impact? And then I like bring those things into my non-negotiables. For me right now, it's dead boring, mate. It's scheduling time, being in the gym every morning, doing 3 runs a week because that's my medicine, and then sleeping. And small one is I don't drink caffeine past 3 o'clock now, just because the impact it has on my sleep is mind-blowing.
It's just not worth it,
Just not worth it. Yeah, just not worth it.
I've had a lot of conversation with people about caffeine, and they got into habits sort of younger, if you like, so 18 to 25, 28. And then over time, they found they can't manage the caffeine the same, so they really have to restrict it. I think it's quite a common thing.
Yeah.
That men seem to, I'm sure I saw some research that men struggle with it a little bit more, but maybe I made that up, so don't hold me to that one. So, we've talked about a lot of stuff today, and it's all really, really interesting. In terms of, if someone was, younger, let's say someone 10, 15 years younger came to you and was interested to get some advice. They've already realized they're vulnerable and they need some help, and they want some advice. What would you tell them to prioritize in life? What would you advise them to prioritize in life, particularly as they're getting into maybe their 20s and they're starting their career? They maybe now have to think a little bit more about their fitness and their health as well, which, you kind of get away with a lot when you're young, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to them or suggest them to prioritize over the next few years?
The thing that I bump into, and I think it's, again, speaking from experience, because I've like the privilege of coaching early stage founders, and that's probably the world that I know best, is spending the time to actually be true to yourself. And this is probably not the direction you thought the answer may go down, but I think so many people rush into, they kind of end up on this like treadmill in life where they come out of school, maybe they've done uni, then they're in a job. And my biggest fear to relate it back to my kids, and I'll pull it back to the question is, they wake up when they're 35, 40 years old and go, what have I done for the last 15 years? Why have I ended up in this position? That's like my biggest fear for my kids. So if I tie it back in and go, if my boys come to me at 20 years old and go, hey dad, what's the one piece of advice you can give me now so I can be successful? I would push them to go, well, what does happiness look like for you? Like, and that changes over time, and I'm super aware of that. You go, okay, on the next 5-10 years, like, tell me where you want to be in 10 years time. I would then interrogate it politely, which is like asking why, because I think we don't ask ourselves why enough. We ask like other people, and we sort of always second guess what other people are saying, and we view other people's comments with skepticism, but we never do that ourselves. And our brains, like as you said earlier, like it's a dangerous tool if you don't use it properly. Yeah. So I would be saying, work out how to spend the time to define truly what you want. And that's not an easy thing. Ask yourself why 5, 10, 15 times to get to the root cause of it and really challenge yourself with it. And then it just becomes a game of like reverse engineering that. So I think there's loads of different things around fitness and health and mindset. But for me, none of that matters unless you know what you're actually trying to achieve. Unless you know what a good life looks like for you, there's a risk that you start going down these paths that you end up having to like reverse out of. So like the advice I would give to everybody is sit down, take a hard look at what you're doing, and don't let that ego and status and all that stuff be the little niggling voice in your head, and just sit with it, whether it's a day, a week, a month, whatever it takes, and just do the work and go, you know what? I've done all this stuff now. I've done school, done uni, maybe had a job, got some life experience. And you might not have enough life experience to know what you want. Then just go and hang out with people that have. I'm just like this big believer that like across people's lives, they're going to need 3 people. They're going to need a coach, a mentor, and a therapist at points. Yeah. Amazing friendship group, a coach, mentor, and therapist to layer on top of that. Don't go at it alone. Build people that you can be your authentic self with, and work out what a good life looks like for you, and just pursue that with like absolute the relentlessness makes it sound like more aggressive than it needs to be. But once you've defined what you want, have conviction, because truth is everybody in your life, well, 99% of people in your life are going to try and knock you off that path because they've got their own priorities and what they want you to do and what they want you to be. And that might be your parents, it might be your friends, whatever it is. When my boys are 20 years old, I want them to tell me, this is what I want to do over the next 10 years. And I want conviction and clarity there. I think everything else becomes way easier if you get to that point.
And I think it's all good advice what you've been saying, but the key thing I guess that stood out for me when you were talking there was this understanding of yourself, or deep-rooted understanding of yourself, and maybe going through that sort of period of self-discovery. And I think that is really important. If you don't quite know who you are yet, it's very hard to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. And it's funny, as you were talking there, I was also thinking about books I read from entrepreneurs from all different kind of backgrounds and situations, some that had some early success and then ended up actually losing some of that success and having to start again. They all talk about this period where they were kind of quiet almost for 6 months, 12 months, sometimes longer, and it took them a while to kind of go back into themselves, figure things out, and then come back again, whether that was because they just had a failure or it's because they just needed that time to understand themselves. Some people talk about going traveling. Some people talk about literally just sitting on a sofa for 6 months and doing absolutely nothing and just thinking. So that period of self-discovery, and the sooner you can do that in life and really understand yourself, sounds like a really important thing to do based on what you're saying.
Neil, to pull it back like full circle, that's exactly what I'm doing now. Because I think once you've done it once, you grow. Things change, and I get it. I've got businesses that I've been involved with and founded and bits like that. The reason I'm back in doing communities and bits like that is I'm in personally right now a moment of self-discovery and self-reflection. I know I want to go and build something else. The old me would have like gone, okay, that chapter's closing. What's the new chapter? And just ran into it. That's what I would have done 25, 30 years old. Now I'm like, okay, just breathe a little bit. Just let it simmer, do the work out exactly what I want to do. Because I was, again, speaking to a friend about this, and it was like, you're like a car that can go at 100 miles an hour. But right now, if that's not pointing in the right direction, you're going to spend all your time going left when you should have been going right. So just take the time before the rubber hits the road and just make sure you're pointing in the right direction. And then I was like, well, it feels quite heavy to go, okay, I need all this grandiose plan now. And then I realized you don't need a plan. You just need a compass. You just need to know where you want to go. The rest of it you can work out. But before you, again, drop the car, rubber hits the road, just take the time to work out where you actually want to go. Because then it goes into like a mode where most people put the blinkers on and they just go. And I actually have it tattooed on me here, which is no regrets. My biggest fear in life is having regrets. And there's been moments in my life where I've obviously done things that I regret or spent time on things that I regret. So taking the time to reflect before you put in the effort, I think it's super important, but it's not like a one and done thing. It's like moments come, I call them chapters, like different chapters arrive in your life. And I think when you are closing one chapter and starting another, whether it takes a week, whether it takes some travel, just take the time to breathe, take a 30,000 foot view in the helicopter and look down at life and go, you know what, where do I want to go? Before you go sort of like the SAS, drop on the ground and go super tactical and then go hard. That's from my experience, just slowing down to speed up a little bit. That's probably the best way I can summarize it.
Yeah. No, I really like that. I like the car analogy and the journey analogy, because in the end, it is a journey, right? And if you were going on a journey, a long journey, let's say a road trip or something, you'd want to make sure the car was all working okay. You'd want to fill up the car. You'd probably make a plan of the route, or at least know the destination and some idea of where you're going to go. I think now we live in an era where it's so easily just switch on Google Maps and that'll take you wherever you decide to go. If I think back to, when I first started driving, it was still maps and things like that. So sometimes you had to really think about it, especially when you're driving around London, had no idea where you were going. And I had the London A to Z on the car seat next to me. So I knew where I wanted to go and I had a rough idea before I went out, but you had to think about it more. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a critical thing. We can get sort of tied up in life, this kind of rapid, fast stuff that's happening. We're thrown all these things via technology, but sometimes you almost need to take that step back and really think, and not necessarily plan everything step by step, but at least have a few key things in place so that you can see the future or see the thing that you want to get to, and then at least have a rough idea how you're going to get there. And that, again, what you were saying earlier, just understanding yourself, that seems just so important.
I think that's like a perfect summary, mate. And that's actually one of my fears, by the way, as a dad, is like, with all this tech, the ability for my kids to think. Because I think that's the only thing that's going to matter in the future, because all the answers that we want are all going to be there. It's actually working out, like thinking from first principles, I think, is the game. Yeah. And it's like, how do you keep kids or young professionals to go, you know what, I actually need to be able to think. And I guess prompt is probably the best way to think about that word now. It's like,
very current. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, if you don't know how to think from first principles, I think you are going to struggle, because I think everything else is going to be powered by tech, but the ability to think with clarity, genuinely a fear of how do you teach people to? It's probably another podcast, but it's that's generally. I think you could be the
whole thing about learning and education as well. We're taught to learn all this knowledge, but actually that knowledge is at your fingertips. Perhaps at some point, wired into your brain directly. It's so easy to get knowledge now, which wasn't available.
What's the value in learning how to recite answers and what happened in 1066? I don't know where I went there, but I remember my old history teacher. That's obviously quite relevant in my mind. But I'm like the teaching how to think, I think, is like the most important thing right now. Yeah. And taking that skill set and doing it on yourself. Yeah. To pull it back to the pod, I think that's what needs to happen.
Great stuff. So one of the things we think about in terms of our brand APMZEE and what that's all based on, and what we're trying to, I guess, achieve with all of that is, there's this kind of irony in life, which is, you kind of gain knowledge and experience over time. But at the same time, physically and mentally, you can start to see declines, or at least it gets very much harder to sort of maintain the kind of youthful energy that you had. Mm-hmm. It's almost like we're giving it at the wrong time. You don't appreciate it when you're young, having all this energy. But when you've got the knowledge and experience, your energy may be not as high as it was back then. So what I'm interested to know is, what is the key thing that you've learned over the years, and it could be anything in terms of knowledge and experience or whatever that might be. What's the key thing that when you look back, you wouldn't trade it for that youthful energy you had at 18?
Wow. I had loads of energy at 18. I wouldn't trade the feeling of being comfortable in my own skin for anything in this world. Like the sense of like, I know who I am, and that's a journey you've got to go on. You don't have that at 18 because like you're still learning it. The world's molding you. You're trying to mold yourself. You've got all these inputs. Like you have to go through this journey of like getting knocked about by the world. I don't think you can fast track that. It's kind of like a relationship. You can't fast track it. Some things just take its time. I wouldn't trade how I feel about myself for that energy. I'd love that energy back, but I wouldn't trade that for it.
Well, that's the longevity game. Hopefully we will get it back at some point, or at least get some added benefit. I mean, even if you look back, 2 decades ago, let's say, 2 generations ago, people seemed older at the ages that we look 100%. At now, and they seem younger. So perhaps we're on the right track anyway, and maybe that goal of being able to live 150 to 150 is possible. But again, you don't want to live to 150 and not be able to do things.
It's the quality at that age as well.
It's the quality of it,
100%.
exactly. I love that idea that you can extend your life, but you want to make sure you're doing it in a way that allows you to continue to be active. Mm-hmm. So you're, instead of being, how you feel at 30, you feel like you would have felt at 30, but at 60. That would be fantastic.
That'd be cool.
So we'll see. Scientists, get on that if you're watching. Make sure.